Big data is neither about bigness nor inherently about dataness. So anything that appears in caps inside quotes on a major newspaper is fake, right? It's a fad. Big data is always in caps within quotes. So that tells you that, first of all, it can't be anything real. The whole notion of big data is that you can use more information to learn new and interesting and subtle things. Okay, that's not new, right? We've been doing that since the dawn of time, roughly. What the wave that big data is riding is this wave of incredible technological change over the last 30 years. In 1990, to buy 1 megabyte of hard drive space would have cost you about $1,500 US. Today, you can't buy it because it's too small, but if you could, it would be about 2 millionths of a cent. So that massive, that 10 to the 7th decrease in cost is also mirrored in CPU power and network bandwidth. And it's clear that anytime you have this massive translocation, the ability to create information, interesting stuff happens, right? The Gutenberg Bible is not interesting because it's a Bible. It's interesting primarily because the Gutenberg Bible is the first thing printed in multiple languages, which is part of what leads to essentially the breakup of the Holy Roman Empire. Interesting side order effects. We're seeing lots of those from technology as well. But what we're also seeing is that this data is easy to mine for the first time ever. And so there's a little bit of simply, it's available in ways it was never available before. That's actually the driving change. And lots of interesting stuff has been done in big data that's not really that big. So, like the examples that were done, particularly during the US presidential election a couple of years ago, were using data that was calculated in Excel. It was not that big, not that complicated, and the math wasn't that hard. There's lots of situations where the nature of what matters, the inferences you draw, are not a function deliberately of the data, but rather of the understanding of the world that surrounds the data. So big data is not about bigness, it's not about dataness. What it is about is asking questions, and you have the ability to ask hard questions for the first time in, materially harder questions, I should say, than the first time in a long time. The data science part is relatively straightforward. It's the artistry that's hard. It's understanding, looking at a data and saying, okay, that result is significant, but not important. Significant and important aren't the same thing. Something can be important and not significant, or vice versa. We often, because it's so easy to do, people with just enough knowledge to be dangerous are doing lots of things, and many of those things that we're doing are things we probably shouldn't do. So we talk a lot, so at my company, Zest, we have this sort of complicated pairing where we have very, very deep mathematicians and computer scientists, who we call modelers, and then we have folks who are either traditional credit people or just in general kind of hardcore analyst types, so quantitative MBA types. And we pair them together because the modelers are going to go find a bunch of math stuff that's important. The analysts are going to go find a bunch of art that's important. And by joining them together, you can create a conversation that says, does this result make any sense? Is it surprising and interesting, or is it surprising and just an artifact, or did we just miss something? So there's we have a whole bunch of intellectual property around how do you automate some of those conversations, because it's really, really hard in a very high signal space. It's easy in a high case space, right? That's just math. In a high signal space, the kinds of math you can use for 4 or 5 variables, like learned in stats class in college, y'all learned regression, right? It's like, that's easy. When you get up to thousands or tens of thousands, you can't use that math anymore. So suddenly there's this really hard conversation to be had. But I think ultimately, we need to harness the best. It's like a marketing department has to harness the best of quantitative people and the best of branding people, right? In kind of data sciences, we're going to have to harness the best of mathematics and computer science and marry them with creative people who understand the domain, and you get data artistry as opposed to just data scientists. All easy problems are solved.